Hello and welcome to another video by Adrian Dafer from Pure Electric. This is the second video in this series where I'm going to talk through the electrotechnical qualification and most importantly the workplace logbook. This is for the 5357 level 3 qualification. It will also be for the 2346 qualification, which is the sitting goes 2346 or EAL equivalent. And that is the experienced worker route. So if you've been in the industry for over 5 years, your qualification no longer exists and you want to fill out your logbook, then you can then use this as a guide to that as well. Now, I've been asked a lot about where I got this from because people have trouble getting hold of it. I don't know why. Personally, I like to have bits of paper that I can read through and flick through and then have it all lined up side by side. So if you do want this, then I got mine off of Amazon. It does come up from time to time. I've also seen it on eBay. But if you Google it, there are bookstores that come up. Okay. Again, if you talk to your training provider, they should be able to issue you with a paper version of this, but it would probably just be a black and white printout. Okay, it won't feel as nice and shiny and thick as this one, but it will still do the job. Okay, so in my previous video, so this is video 2, I spoke about the expert witnesses and the workplace logbook candidate guide. So I'll quickly briefly go through that as well each time on each video just to help drum it in. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Unit 102, so applying health, safety and environmental considerations. And then here's the candidate guide. So I'm not going to talk through this again because I've already spoken about this in another video. And if you haven't watched that video, I do suggest you watch it. It does just briefly talk through it. But again, just briefly, there are several methods of providing proof of competence. So you've got DO, which is direct observation. You've got PE, which is product evidence. You've got RA, which is reflective account, which is what most of us end up using, writing reflectively to describe what we've done. PD is professional discussion you may have with your assessor. WT is a witness testimony, somebody that can then be a witness and says that you can do what you say you're doing. OQ, oral questioning. WQ, written questioning, and JR, job record. And then that basically describes what those options. If you make a mistake, it then says simply draw a line through the mistake and date and sign alongside the mistake. Duplicate sheets can be included as required, so you can photocopy these and just keep duplicating them up. But it does say please do not use correction fluid in this workplace evidence record. Each section will have a unit brief, which I will talk through, a unit checklist, a unit range evidence tracker, job records, supplementary evidence, feedback, etc. It then also talks about behaviours. Now, because you can apply for EngTech status after this qualification with the IET, these 8 behaviours kind of follow the ethical statement of principles by the IET. So we've got works reliably and effectively without close supervision. Behaviour 2, accepts responsibility for the work of themselves and others. Behaviour 3, accepts, allocates and supervise technical and other tasks. Behaviour 4, oral, written and electronic methods for the communication of technical and other information. Behaviour 5, works effectively with colleagues, other trades, clients, suppliers and the public. Behaviour 6, undertakes the work in a way that contributes to a sustainable development. Behaviour 7, maintains and enhances competence in own areas, that's CPD. And Behaviour 8, exercises responsibilities in an ethical manner. Again, we should all be aiming to be good quality tradespeople, ethical tradespeople. So that shouldn't be a problem for most people. It then says who does what. So the candidate, that's you. You need to complete the following sections. So that would be the range and evidence tracker, job records, supplementary evidence and feedback. The assessor needs to complete the remaining sections, so the checklist and the forward planning sign-off sheets, which I'll go through as we go through this. For the 102, which is what we're going to be doing, you don't really have much work to do other than arranging for the assessor to come and visit you on site. You have to be observed on a minimum of 2 occasions to complete the 102 health and safety. However, it is very unlikely that you will be observed just on health and safety. You will be carrying out tasks that will meet performance criteria across other performance units. And basically what this is saying is that when you arrange for the assessor to come out on site and see you doing the health and safety, the Unit 102, you can also be smart. You can get them to come and assess first fix or second fix. And basically anything they assess on the day, you then don't have to write about. Okay, so it's a win-win for you. But what that does mean is that you have to be organised. The assessor is going to have a limited amount of time. Okay, they may have to see 2 or 3 people in a day. Your boss isn't going to want to be sitting around waiting for this all to be sorted out. Okay, so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get all your paperwork in order first before you turn up. And then you need to make sure that you maybe have left off a socket that needs second fixing. There may be a bit of first fixing that needs doing, so maybe a cable that needs clipping or a piece of conduit that needs securing to the wall. And then maybe even a bit of test and inspection, okay, maybe in your 3rd year, a bit of test and inspection that can then be ticked off as well. Now, the important thing to remember is with this portfolio and this logbook is that you cannot write about something until you've been taught it or started to be taught it at college. And what that means is that in the 1st year, the first thing you're going to learn is health and safety. So at that point, yes, you can do this and you can talk about it. You won't really get on to do much second fixing and first fixing until you go into the practical room. So until you do that, you won't be able to talk about first fix and second fix. You definitely won't be able to talk about testing until you've learnt that at college. So you have to be smart with how you set this up. Now, you can get yourself used to writing about those things. However, the dates they all need to line up with once you've been taught it. So once you've done it in college, then you can start filling out your portfolio for it. But there's no harm in getting some practice in, because then you'll know what to do when you get there. Okay, so at the front of each section, it has a brief that we go through. So this is for the 102, and here it says evidence must be provided on a minimum of 2 separate occasions. You've got learning outcome 1, 2, 3, and 4. A minimal amount of criteria is not achieved on the direct observation record, then oral questioning and professional discussion can be used on the document provided. So the assessor can question you and provide that extra detail that's required. Also, equivalent employer supplementary evidence documents can be provided, but these must be completed by the candidate in relation to workplace activities. So again, if there isn't enough time on the day or something else needs to be brought forward as evidence, the candidate can get that assessed and make that employer supplementary evidence as long as it's signed as well. Okay, so the minimum evidence required for this, you need 3 from the supplementary evidence list, so there was only 3, so you have to do all 3. You need relevant photographs, you need a risk assessment, you need a method statement, which I'll talk you through, and then you need to hit behaviours 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, okay, which we'll talk through, which I spoke through at the beginning. So learning outcome 1, identify which workplace health and safety procedures are relevant to the working environment and comply with their duties and obligations as defined by current legislation and organisational procedures. Again, the assessor is going to tick this because that's their job. Okay, so I have job number 1, job number 2, for instance, and then it would be direct observation in either of those. Produce a risk assessment and method statement in accordance with organisational procedures for a given work activity, which I'll talk you through in a bit when we get there. And then you need to work within the requirements of the risk assessment, the method statement, and the safe system of work. So it's no good saying that you're going to work off of a tower if you then get out the steps. It's no good saying that you're going to do things in a certain order if you then change that. You've then got to change the method statement. It's no good saying that you're going to use PPE if you then don't use PPE. And definitely don't be working live when the assessor comes. That is a big no-no, unless the risk assessment says that you can't have the power off. Learning outcome 2, identify unsafe situations and conditions and take remedial actions. So when you start completing that risk assessment, this is what you're going to be doing, and the assessor is going to watch you do it. So you're going to assess the work environment and revise work practices according to take into account hazards which could cause harm, including the handling of potentially hazardous materials, tools, and equipment. You then need to identify any hazards which may present a high risk, and then you need to report those to relevant persons who have overall responsibility for health and safety in the workplace. So again, the assessor will see you doing that and they can tick the box if need be. You then need to apply measures to control health and safety hazards. So if you've done your risk assessment, you've worked out that you need barriers. Obviously, you need to put your barriers up. You need to get the steps out or the whatever it is you've said in the risk assessment method statement, you then need to get those out and apply those. And then you need to select and use correct personal PPE. So whatever PPE you've specified, you need to use. Again, these are just ticks on 2 separate jobs. Then we come over to learning outcome 3. You need to demonstrate a level of personal conduct and behaviour within the workplace to ensure that the health and safety of themselves and others is not endangered. So basically, don't be an idiot on site. You need to take yourself seriously, and you need to manage yourself well and look professional. You don't want to be taking any shortcuts. You need to apply procedures to ensure the safe use, maintenance and storage of tools, plant and equipment as stipulated in the workplace policy, so company and site, any supplier information, manufacturer's instructions need to be adhered to, comply with information, warning, mandatory instruction and prohibition notices. So basically, if you've got signs there that say you should be wearing a hard hat, guess what? You should be wearing a hard hat. Apply procedures to ensure the safety of the work location through the correct use of guards, barriers and notices. So ladders, tower scaffold or mute, step ladder, platform. Making sure that you've got the right barriers around your ladders, that the tower scaffold or mute that you're using has warning notices and signs up to say that you're working in the area perhaps. Platform maybe has got tow guards to stop things falling off the sides. And you need to use that access equipment correctly. Okay, so no climbing up the sides of the platform. You need to go up the ladder from on the inside of the platform. You're then going to look at the environmental, the sort of acts that you have to stick to, so the legislation. So you need to be able to demonstrate appropriate procedures for the safe handling, storage and disposal of hazardous materials and products in accordance with one of the following. So the Environmental Protection Act, the Hazardous Waste Regulations, Pollution Prevention and Control Act, Control of Pollution Act, Control of Noise at Work Regulations, Environment Act. Let's just double check that doesn't go over to the other side. So for instance, if you were working with fluorescent tubes or LEDs or any electronic equipment, you could tick the hazardous waste regulations and that you've dealt with that properly. It's gone into the right container. It just hasn't been thrown in the skip, for instance. So you just need to tick one. And again, the assessor will witness you doing that. And then you've got the direct observation that's filled out by the assessor. So this will be job 1. And there's a second job that gets done as well. So here the assessor will fill out the job location and address. Again, you need to provide the assessor with that when they come up on site. Now I can tell you now, there is nothing more frustrating for the assessor when they book you in to come and see you and then you let them down and try and reschedule. Okay, because they've created space in their diary to fit you in. It's not easy to then do something with that time. They can't just phone up someone else and say, we're going to turn up on site now, are you ready for us? Because that person won't be ready for them. So please, I'm begging you, just make sure that when you arrange for that person to come round and do this site visit, you've got all your paperwork in place, you've got prepared the site, you've got it ready, you've spoken to your employer, you've explained what's going on, and you've got as much there as possible for the assessor to see. And yeah, don't let them down, because otherwise they've got to try and fit that in at another time, and that is really difficult to do, I can tell you. So while they're there, you'll also write down a job description of what you were doing. So that could be first fixing of a kitchen, it could be second fixing of a consumer unit. Whatever it is that you're doing, there'll be a brief job description in there. So it won't be War and Peace, but it will be enough to give somebody an idea of what you were doing. As well, when you tick these learning outcomes down here, they will just be ticking them off, okay, because then they sign at the end. So while they're there, they're going to be looking for demonstrate the appropriate use of PPE, identify the location of a suitable first aid kit and nominated person. So again, if you're working on a big site, chances are there'll be a first aid room there somewhere or something with a first aider. If you're just a jobbing electrician or going around, in a one-man band sort of thing, chances are you've got a first aid kit in the van. So that would be easy to demonstrate. And the nominated person would obviously be the person in charge, the duty holder. Demonstrate methods of recording accidents. So you should have an accident book in the van. Again, when I was with a competent person scheme, you had to have an accident book as well. Conduct yourself properly around others in the workplace. So identify the location of the nearest fire point or fire extinguisher. Demonstrate an awareness of the fire safety procedure. Demonstrate an awareness of the emergency evacuation procedure. Demonstrate an awareness of the site or company induction process. Demonstrate precautionary actions with regards to personal hygiene. Source and confirm location of safety documentation. Demonstrate methods of reporting potential hazards, and work to procedures laid down in risk assessments and method statements. So again, once you've just shown all that, it's just simply a tick, 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 tick all the way through. So before they come out on site, make sure you've read through this and you know where all that is. Fail to plan, plan to fail. And you guys need to start accepting responsibility for this, okay? This is the same as running a company or running your own job. You need to get all your ducks lined up in a row. Over here then, we're going to use risk assessments to identify safe methods of working at height. So this is just continued from this page. Identify potential hazards when working at height, safety check and select the appropriate access equipment. You're then going to perform the safe use of access equipment, 2 of the 4 items in the range listed below. Okay, so you've got 2 of these, sorry. So you need to have either a picture of a ladder, a picture of a tower scaffold or mute, picture of a step ladder, picture of a platform. So step ladder and ladder, I mean, that's closely related. I mean, obviously they struggle with this a bit, reading between the lines. But ideally what you would want is a picture of you using a ladder and a picture of you using a tower scaffold or a mute. That would be brilliant. So carry out safety checks and procedures within the work location. You need to provide evidence of a tidy work area, provide evidence of adequate lighting in the work area, provide evidence of protecting customers' property, so maybe dust sheets down, provide evidence of, verify suitable access and exit routes to and from the work location, follow safety signs and notices, store tools and equipment appropriately, demonstrate safe transportation and use of tools and equipment, and demonstrate safe manual handling lifting techniques, obviously keeping your back straight and bending your legs, bending your knees. Now, again, before the assessor turns up, you should be planning this weeks in advance. So you need to say to your employer, okay, I've got a health and safety inspection coming up, observation coming up. And ideally, this is the criteria that I need to fit. So please, can we make sure that we've got, where is it? First aid kit on the van. Please, can you talk me through the evacuation procedure so I know what's going on? I also need to have 2 of these come up. So are we going to be working with a ladder in the next month? What about a tower scaffold? When are we going to be using a tower scaffold? Because that's when I'm going to need to book in this observation. And you need to be proactive in the way that you deal with this, okay? Because the assessor isn't going to know what's going on. It's your job to inform them and to be the go-between between the assessor and your employer. Okay, you need to take that responsibility. Again, there'll be a chance for a professional discussion. So if you haven't managed to hit all the criteria on the day because for whatever reason it wasn't available, things weren't as dangerous as they could have been, then the assessor has an opportunity to ask some questions. So for instance, it could be there wasn't really a fire evacuation thing on the day, but what would the apprentice do if there was a fire? How would you have dealt with that situation? And then the apprentice will answer, and the assessor will make a note of that. And then they'll give you feedback and forward planning. So say, this is what you did right, this is what you hopefully didn't do wrong. Okay, we don't want anything like that, so it should be what you've done right, and this is what you need to do for next time. And this is what you may need to send me because I didn't see evidence of this, so I need extra supplementary evidence to show what you've done. That will then be signed by the candidate and the assessor, and then the IQA may look at this later. So it's not required all the time, but an IQA basically rummages through each portfolio randomly and just selects pieces of evidence. So if they come across this, they check it, they sign and date it. Obviously then there's a job 2. It's exactly the same. And then we move on to a risk assessment. Okay, and this is simple. All you have to do is look around the work site where you're working and tick off whatever you've got in the area. So let's say you've got a hazard of falling objects and debris and materials, you tick that. If you've got manual handling to do, you tick that. And you tick 2 or 3 of these. Well, maybe a bit more. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would expect to see at least 5 as a minimum there of these ticked off. And then all you do is you write the hazard description and you do a risk rating. And that is L likelihood. Okay, so it is between 1 and 10. Even though it says here 1, 5 and 10, you do have all the numbers in between. Okay, so don't just stick to 1, 5 and 10 because otherwise you're never going to get this score low enough. So likelihood is L. Then you've got E, so total exposure. Less than 1 per shift, less than 4 per shift, and less than 4 hours per shift. Okay, or more than 4 hours per shift, sorry. And then you add that number in there. Then you've got S, which is the severity. So what are the chances of it going wrong and how bad is it going to be? No treatment is 1. All the way from 2, 3, 4 to 5. So 5 is a minor, first aid and return to work. Anything over a 5 could be major, lost time or incapacity. Okay, and then you would put that number in there. And then P is the persons affected. So 1 is a single person. 2, 3, 4 to 5 is how many people are in the area. Over 5, it's how many people are in the department. Okay, so we've got 5 to 20. So you just have to sort of calculate it and work it out. And what you'll get is you'll get a fairly high score here. Okay, and then you need to then do improvement actions. And then you need to redo it and the score needs to be lower. And then that's what you're going to use as your method statement and what you're going to do. So for instance, let's say we're going to be working off a ladder. Okay, what is the likelihood of something going wrong? Well, let's say that maybe that's about a 3 because of everything that's around on the site. We then got E. How many times are we going to be up that ladder? Less than 1 hour per shift. So a shift, let's imagine that's 8 hours. Well, actually, do you know what? We're going to be up and down that ladder quite a lot. So more than 4 hours per shift. Less than 4 hours. Less than 4 hours per shift. So let's say 5. Then the severity. What happens if I fall off that ladder? What's going to go wrong? Well, I might twist my ankle or I might fall down through this floor void or, you've got to work it out. If it's not very high, obviously, it's just some time off first aid and then return to work. So 5. And then you would have the persons affected. If it's just you in the area, that would be a 1. You would times all that and end up with a high score. You could then think, well, do you know what? That's too high. What I'll do is we'll work from a scaffold tower instead. And then you'll redo this and then the score should be lower, okay? Because there's less of a risk working from a scaffold tower. But you get the general idea. And you should have at least 5 things down there, I would have said. Okay then, turning over, we've then got continues the risk assessment. Are appropriate procedures in place for the safe handling, storage and disposal of hazardous materials and products in accordance with the following? And again, you just need to tick this to say that you've complied with these regulations. You carried out the risk assessment, so you go here, and then basically relevant people informed of findings. So that could be your boss, that could be the assessor, whoever needs to be informed, they sign to say they've done it. And that's the risk assessment done. We then need some supplementary evidence, so some photographs. We need 2 photographs of access equipment, if you remember, and it was 2 of the following. If I just turn back. So we need a picture of a ladder, a picture of a tower scaffold or mute, a step ladder or a platform, okay? And 1 of each. So this one could be a ladder, description of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And in this one, there could be a tower scaffold or mute, and same again, bit of a description. And then you need the supplementary evidence reference, so whether that was job 1 or job 2. And then obviously the date. We then turn that over, and then we've got PPE used. So in your risk assessment and your method statement, it would have said what PPE you're going to be using. So if it says in your your risk assessment that you're going to be using a dust mask, ear defenders, steel toe caps, high vis, gloves and goggles, guess what you need to be wearing in the picture? You need to be wearing everything appropriate to the task. Use of guards, notices and barriers. Okay, so again, if you've put that in the assessment, you need that as well. And a brief description of both and the evidence number. Now you've got a supplementary evidence sheet number. Okay, so this could be where you've had to, now you've got a supplementary evidence method statement. Okay, so again, you have to give that a reference number. The project name and address and site should fit in with the risk assessment. Again, the contractor name and contact details, site manager name, contact details, who was on site, so that could be plasterers, plumbers, decorators, whatever, and then description of the contract that you were doing. You then have the sequence of work activity. So again, the dates, what you did, date, what came next, date after that, date, then you did this, date, this is how we finished. So we basically tidied up, cleaned up, put all the floorboards down, whatever it was that you were doing is all back to normal, and we've tested the job to make sure it's safe. So any pre-start checks that you had to do, deliveries and site access requirements, that could be something like if you were working on the top floor of a flat, how you're going to get deliveries and the site access up there. Documentation passed to contractor or client representative. So this could be anything like the method statements or risk assessments if they needed that. Could be any test certificates that were handed over, any manufacturer's instructions, anything like that. Then you've got welfare facilities. So welfare facilities, obviously you've done this in your health and safety section. That's, water, clean water to wash with. Wash your hands or whatever, toilet facilities, that kind of stuff. Somewhere warm where you can eat your lunch, so that could even just be the van, but you need some welfare facilities. Hazards identified, so that would have been what you've done your risk assessment to, whether you needed any work permits that were required. So you could have the work permit number there. Ppe requirements, so what you've used as PPE, and obviously first aid facilities, which could be as much as just having a first aid kit in the van. Over here then you've got tools and plant required. What tools did you use? What plant did you need? And by plant we mean things like transformers, scaffold towers, anything that's quite heavy duty over here. Again, method statement prepared by, so that would be you, signature, date, and the method statement accepted by, that would be the assessor, signature and date. Then finally, we've got this feedback and forward planning sign-off sheet. So did you get all the photographs? Yes. Did you get all the risk assessment? Yes. Did you do the method statement? Yes. If there was anything that was missing out of that, again, professional discussion record, confirmation of evidence that gets filled out, the feedback and forward planning, indication of the behaviours that you did, you sign it, your assessor signs it, and the IQA if they've read it. And that is the end of the 102 section. So I hope that's been of some use to you. Like I said, make sure that you get this, plan this out. Don't just assume that it's going to be all right on the day. Fail to plan, plan to fail. You need to be the go-between between your employer and the college. You need to be proactive. You need to set it up. You need to say, this is what I need to do. I need to do something with ladders. I need to do something with a scaffold tower. When are we going to have that around? Fantastic. We're doing that in a month's time. Perfect. Phone the college. Let them know. Speak to your boss. The college is coming on this day. This is what they need. I just need to show them some first fixing, some second fixing, maybe a bit of testing on the day if you're that far ahead in college. And then the assessor can tick off loads of things as they go while they are there. Whatever they sign off for you saves you writing about it. Okay, so it's in your interest to get this right. Okay, so again, I hope this has been of some help for you. Any questions, please just email me. I'm doing my best to help someone, to help other people. And what I will do is also get some sort of list of frequently asked questions together. So the more you guys interact with me, the more comprehensive list of frequently asked questions I can get together as well. Possibly even some actual videos to tie that in as well. So, more you help me, the more I can help you. Right, take care guys. I'll speak to you soon.